Okay. Hi guys. Welcome back to my channel. It's SpringRae with another video. Thank you for joining again. So I'm gonna jump right into it. I have my heater going and I tested it out. You can't hear it. It's during the holiday time, so it is getting cooler, chilly. So I'm keeping my little feetsies warm. I still have my decor for the holidays in the background. So, we got to have some lights going. Yes. But we're going to choose something that's not too distracting. Let's go with, we're going to do the first one. And that one. Where they just stay on. Okay, good. So, welcome back to my channel. I thought now is a good time for me to finally talk more about my previous job, currently working again, full-time job and part-time job. My previous job, I wanted to get a little distance, a little bit removed from my previous job before I actually spoke on it. There's a reason why. So I think I'm ready to just be able to talk about it a little bit. And I've actually made another video that never surfaced online. I never put it out here because I was going to try and do a whole lot of editing and it was a lot. So I'm just going to talk about my previous job being a school counselor. That is the last job that I had before my current job. Current job still part-time is related, but full-time job is different field. But I was lucky enough that my skills as a school counselor were able to transfer into my new full-time job. So there it is, guys. I used to be a school counselor. What levels did I work at? Well, I purposely applied for working in either elementary schools or middle schools. And when I first graduated from grad school a while ago, I preferred to work at the elementary school level. Because if you see this dear old face of mine, I'm aging actually pretty well. I would say for very well. I am aging very well because I do not get above 25 usually when I talk to people. So that is one of the reasons why I chose to work with the younger population because I was just like, I do not want to go throughout my days at work, working as an adult, and being mistaken as a student. I was like, high school? No, it's not happening. I heard stories after I started working as a school counselor from other counselors who did work at the high school level that were constantly saying that they were being hit on by the students because the students thought that they were students. And I mean, they did look young, like myself. So I've only worked in the middle school setting and elementary school. Started elementary school. I will say as a elementary school counselor at the school that I was at, it was, let me start with positives because I don't want to just scare you bright, optimistic, and hopeful people away from the profession. Every profession has its positives and its negatives. I will say, going and before I even wanted to be a counselor, backing up a little bit more, going to college, I started out actually wanting to be a dentist, and then I changed up wanting to be a nurse. Both of those required way too much science, more sciences than I thought, especially for the dentistry part. So the school I went to for college, it was not easy, y'all. It was not easy. They were purposely trying to fail you. So I changed up my major, ended up majoring in psychology. And so that led me down the track of, okay, well, what do I do with this? And I said, I want to help people. And so I said, okay, what professions are out there where I can help people? Counseling. And then I said, well, what environment at that time? I was all for working with the young folk, helping the young folk. So I said, school counseling. Voila. And that's how I started my career. First school, I will say, the counseling part where I mean, like individual counseling, sitting down and talking one on one to a student, loved that part of my job. And as a someone going through a counseling program, if you are learning how to become a counselor, school counselor in particular, I was on that track more so than the clinical side of counseling or career counseling track at the school I went to. So if you are studying to be a school counselor in particular, please know that if you are able to find a job in a school in 2020, we're almost in 2025, where all you have to do or are responsible for is individual and group counseling, count yourself a lucky human being, probably a rare unicorn. Because after I graduated, I, in my mind, envisioned having a small room, enough space for just myself and a wonderful child to come and have a little talk, a little chatty chat, right? And so those were my thoughts. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, I have plenty of stuff, lying around of mine that I can just throw up to decorate my space. When I tell y'all, I was shocked. I was shooketh when I got to my first school. Um, it was shocking because they gave me a whole classroom. And I was like, why do I have a classroom? Right? I was like, I wasn't expecting all of this. And when I talk about a classroom, huge room. And I was just like, one, I didn't go to school to learn how to decorate bulletin boards. I had not one, not two, three huge bulletin boards that were in, like, I think one on the outside of the room and then two in the classroom. They don't teach you that in my counseling program. We had little, if to like no instruction on classroom guidance whatsoever. So my first year as a counselor was a learning curve for me because guess what? Elementary school level, boom, placed on the specials team. Surprise, surprise, didn't know that was going to happen. I have a team I'm on. What? I thought I was just a counselor. I thought I was just going to see kids all day, rotated throughout my room as needed, right? No, put on the specials team with art, PE, um, library, art. Wait, I already gym teacher. I'm missing one. I don't know who I left out. But anyway, I was set up in that rotation, meaning that I would see every grade level at least once every other week, I believe. At first, it shifted from year to year, but let me tell you, the most work was classroom guidance for me at the elementary school level. So that was new, not expected. Did I learn a lot? I grew so much because I was a nervous wreck my first couple of weeks. Because again, that was not what I was expecting to do as a counselor. I didn't know I was going to be doing a whole lot of teaching. I mean, I felt like a teacher. By the time I left there, I was like, oh, I've got the teaching part down pat. If anything, by the time I left from the school, I was there for about 3 years, three and some change. I was a master at the teaching aspect of counseling. And it surprised me because I was like, well, that wasn't even part of my program. I didn't even go to school for this, but I will also say it was the easiest. It was the area that I could be the most creative in because that's one of the things why favored, I shouldn't say favored, I preferred to this day, even if for whatever reason I had to go back to be a counselor over a teacher, you as a counselor have so much more freedom. Now, I will say, mind you, this is before people made an uproar about social emotional learning. I left out of the schools before it became a huge issue with some people that always make things an issue. But before all that nonsense happened, and like before critical race theory became a huge topic, I felt I had so much control over what my lessons were. So I love that aspect about being a counselor. And then another positive I'll say is that just my schedule, even though at the elementary school level I was included in the specials rotation, I still was able to have some control over my schedule. And I was able to form like small groups, like whatever groups I thought were needed. Um, that was nice to have that control too. So the control piece. I had some control. I'm not going to say I had complete control, but some control. More control than I think teachers had. So I do feel bad for teachers in the aspect of control. I feel like teachers have the least amount of control out of all the positions in the school, which to me is a little backwards because I feel like your children's classroom teachers, core subject teachers should be the ones that have, the sorry, I'm messing with this twist. I don't like how it's sitting. They should have the most control, not over your kids, but just over um, you know, the flow of their day just to be successful and a little bit more wiggle room for how they teach a lesson, I think is important. But back to school counseling. So, more positives that I can say is that I guess in particular for me, a positive was that the school I was at, just to give you kind of a setup, it was in a predominantly, I shouldn't say predominantly, it was in, yeah, predominantly low income neighborhood across the line though. And it was interesting. The town setup, you may not, if you drove through the town, you wouldn't think that it's low income. Um, but all across the board, I was shocked when I saw that. So when I say all across the board, it was one third black, one third Hispanic, and one third white. I have never seen that set up in a school before. So it was fascinating from that percentage wise, and then also from, again, low income across the board. So, I like the diversity of the students. One of the things I did not like my first couple of years, I guess, at that school, was that I was one of about five chocolate drops out of a staff of about 65, 70 people. Hmm. They could have done so much better. And on top of that, I was one of two out of the five of us chocolate drops that were certified teachers. And I was a counselor, so I wasn't even a teacher. The other educator was like a special, what was her role? Not special education, but she was over IEPs for the school. Yeah. So just the two of us were the only ones that had like a, you know, degree, like graduate level degree in our area. The other chocolate drops, one was our custodian, other was a teacher associate, and I'm sorry, we did have one classroom teacher. I remember she was second grade classroom teacher. One, two, three, me. Who was the fifth person? There's another teacher associate. So we had one black classroom teacher out of the whole school. Um, Main classroom teacher. So one of the positives is that I did bring for my, fellow students of color, it was nice to see that they could recognize, like, hey, you could possibly be in this position as well. Like, you have the chance to be a counselor because otherwise, all they see all day is, um, even though the student body was very diverse, the makeup of teachers, it was predominantly white women at my school. So there were some issues there that made me feel uncomfortable. I remember being much more optimistic when I first came out of grad school, just about being a counselor in general, school counselor in general. My dad, he had the foresight to see, like, hey, this is not going to be a walk in the park. Like, it's going to be hard. And he tried to convince me to work at his company, which I did try to do. He worked for an agri business. I tried to work there. Probably would be getting really nice pay right about now. It just was not my calling. I was bored. I did not like it. It worked out for him. He loved it though. So more power to my dad. He's retired now and living the good life. But he did not lie that I was getting into a lot, being in the school system, not necessarily being a counselor, but being in the schools. So one of the issues that I dealt with some, don't know if you call it like colorism, not necessarily racism, just like the lack of understanding and the lack of just trying to be knowledgeable about diversity. I wore my hair natural, and it's like natural, almost like a fro like state. Thinking that, nobody's going to treat me any differently. And that was not the case. Now, from students, I didn't care if students made any comments. I had one student that definitely told me that it was a boy. He told me, I like your hair the other way you have it, meaning like he liked my hair straightened. But I was not expecting for teachers to just say, and again, mostly white women stating, "Oh, your hair, it's interesting," making side-handed comments. And I was just like, this is not it, y'all. If y'all can't come up with something to say, I'd rather you just not say anything at all and just let me go on about my day. Some people, some of the staff would make a huge to do, like if I went from wearing my hair like in its natural state and then going and straightening it, they would make such a to do when I straightened my hair. It was like, oh, I'm a rock star. But the days where it wasn't straightened, they would treat me like a different person. It was interesting. So not everybody, but some people acted like they didn't know who I was when I had my hair in its natural state. And that's on them. They have to grow up. I can't fix that. They have to change. So there was that issue. And then what other issues? I will say I did have a big issue of determining who received help. That was challenging because the fact that everybody was low income, and when I say everyone, like a majority percentage of the school had free and reduced lunch. I've never seen almost the whole school have free and reduced lunch, but that's how it was. And so determining things for like around the holiday time, Thanksgiving help, Christmas help, it was so overwhelming. I had to send out so many surveys just to figure out who needed the help the most because everybody was asking for help. And this was back in 2014. I can only imagine how people go about doing help, like helping around the holidays now for schools. It's just so hard to be able to help everybody. It's impossible for the school to take on that task. But when it comes to handing out, like physically giving them things for the holidays. So that was hard, but I had amazing support from outside of the school. Two churches, they helped during the holidays. So it didn't just fall completely on the school to come up with stuff. So I love them. They were the best contacts. I remember their faces. I can't remember their names, but they were the sweetest people, and their churches were literally right across the street from one another. And even though, you would think that they would have like a church rivalry going on, but they both worked like hand in hand. They helped the school. They were amazing. Um, One of the things I will always cherish, mind you, I'm only sharing in this video my experience at the elementary school level, so this video is not too long. One of the things that I will cherish, I actually had students that did different because we had school counselor week and the teachers got together, had their students draw pictures representing the counselor. And so I kept a book. So it's like my favorite keepsake from that job area, or not area, era, where the kids actually drew pictures of me, how they saw me. And so that was so interesting because it's coming from a child's eyes. And I was like, oh, I love this because they're not being affected by adults at the elementary school age as much. I feel like kids are affected by adults once they reach middle school, fourth and fifth grade. Yeah, once they reach that age. But the kindergarten through third graders, it was interesting just to see how did they picture me. So some of them, it was interesting how they drew my hair. Um, skin tone was interesting to see, and it just brightened up my day to get those. So I still have them. I'll share some of them in my next video so that y'all can see it. It made me cry once I got them from them. Um, but that was a good memory that I had. One of the things, and I know this video is all over the place. Go back and watch it again if you're lost, because I'm kind of all over. Um, One of the things that I felt like I spent way too much time doing as a counselor that I feel like was not in my role was helping with restraining children. I never practiced, that was not taught to me in my program as a counselor. We were never taught that you would have to be available to help restrain a child. And me being the optimist that I was like, oh, y'all need a volunteer to sign up for this committee? I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. If you feel uncomfortable with restraining anyone, I would just say students, but anyone, do not volunteer to be part of this. I believe it's the CPI. I forget what it stands for because I'm not doing that anymore. But it's if you volunteer for that, you're basically saying, I'm going to be one of the point contacts that will help in the case a student needs to be restrained. You are going to be called to help because you have to take a training in order to do that. I was all optimistic my first year and I said, sure, I'll take the training. And they teach you the correct way to hold a student so that you're not going to harm them or harm yourself. I went through the training. I believe they gave me a little card. I don't even know if I kept it up with it at the school, but then my name went down on that list. And I think at the time, as the school counselor, they kind of automatically wanted me to do the training. Um, so I did not think that I would be working with one student the most of my first year. I was stressed out because of one student. We had a great bond because I worked with him so often, but he was a runner first thing in the morning. So I'm talking about my day started. I would have to get to the school around school. Okay, school started at 7:45. Doors were open for breakfast. Kids could come in. So I'm talking early in the morning. And I'm having to help principal, assistant principal, whoever is there, help to stop this child from running outside because he had separation anxiety and he was trying to run after whoever would bring him to school. He didn't want them to leave, so he would try to run after them. So that was one case. There's been of having to help with restraining. There's been other cases with students that behavior is just not good and they had to be they would trash classrooms. um I would be called on a walkie. Also a thing, if you're looking to be a counselor, I will just go ahead and tell you that your school is most likely going to give you a walkie talkie because they want the counselor to have a walkie talkie because 9 times out of 10 they're going to be sending, like, teachers are going to be sending students to your room to talk to. Sometimes you'll be called down to the office to pick up things for different from different supporters of the school, blah blah blah. You will be given a walkie, I promise you. If no one else gets one, you will get one. um but yeah, so restraining was a big thing. um there were things that I just could not believe the teachers allowed in the classroom. I was called on the walkie sometimes to come help a teacher who was struggling with a student. The teacher, they did what they were supposed to do. They, got the rest of the students out of the classroom, but some of the classrooms were tore up. And I was just like, why did the student get this much time to tear up a classroom? I don't know. And it did make me a little upset because I can't blame the teacher because the teacher's goal is to protect the rest of the students from a student that's, acting out. But at the same time, and also the teachers, they were not CPI trained. And, if anything, schools for the most part still are on the parent side when it comes to any issues with a student being grabbed. Usually the parents are going to win that situation against the teacher. So a lot of teachers are afraid to touch students because of that. So the student, I remember vividly when I got in the room, student was hiding under a desk after he had trashed the entire classroom, tables overturned, paper all torn up. A lot of the papers weren't even his. They were the teacher's papers, torn up, um, chairs knocked over, just craziness. And he's up under the table. Mind you, it's a second grader, not a baby, not a kindergartner, second grader. And just because he didn't get to have his way, tore up a classroom. And teacher says she didn't have time to make it to the phone to call from the office, so she called me on the walkie. Um, and I just think it's sad that we give kids that much power over a classroom teacher, but that's how it was a lot of the time. So it was very unfortunate. I will talk about more issues of that at the middle school level later. Um, but what else can I say about school counseling? Um, I will say to help future school counselors, if you're interested in the profession, again, it's not it's challenging. I will say one of the good things is that you will always go in not knowing what your day is going to look like. So you will never be bored. You will never be bored. But on the flip side, it's very unpredictable. So just take heed of that. Um, Again, it's a job where you do have some control over your day. But a lot of times, because due to lack of staff, I was used as a babysitter a lot, um, and was not happy about that. I would say that's probably one of my top reasons for leaving the profession, is being used for something that I didn't go to school for. I said, this is a waste of my degree if you're going to use me to babysit while I have a list of students that I know are dealing with family issues, crisis, blah, blah, blah. Um, so one thing I can tell you that would help if you want to become a counselor or you're about to start working in a school is that you should try your best to go ahead and have what you want to be your schedule so that nobody can input other stuff, because if the principal can go ahead and see you already have a set plan, they're going to be less likely to try to take over your plans, especially if they are good laid out plans, you're addressing the needs of the school. Go ahead and set that up how you want it to look like. That way you can say, this is what I plan to do. Can I please have this schedule? And then, give the principal a copy and try to encourage them to stick to what your plans were, your original plan. That way they'll be less likely to come. If you come with no plan, they are going to make your schedule for you, and I guarantee you, you are not going to like it. So that's my wisdom for this evening on that. Um, what can I say? I think this goes just with any job, but there's always drama between, coworkers. I stayed out of it as much as I could. I didn't comment on stuff if it didn't involve me, like work wise. I didn't really engage in that. Um, what else can I say? There's so much. Like, I think I'll stop at the 30 mark, so this won't be super, super long and just do more of these. Um, but I I think that there's your principal will make a big difference too. I love the first principal that I work with at that school. She's very peaceful, hippie. We were the same along the lines of we're very nice, down to earth people. We don't like to deal with drama. We would prefer not to deal with confrontation. I can handle confrontation if I need to, but I prefer not to deal with it, and I give everyone a chance. The principal, she told me from the get go, the first principal, she was really nice. She told me I sent out a survey when I first got to the school, about a couple months after I had started, to see what I could do better, get feedback from the rest of the staff. She told me, she said, Jasmine, I don't think you know, like, I think it was a little, it might have been like half the year had gone by for my first year. And I was just like, I want to get some feedback from the teachers. And she's like, I don't know. They can be really harsh. And I was like, oh, no, no. I want to see what I can do better. She was not lying on how harsh your coworkers can be. I sent the survey out anonymously, just asking for advice, like what needs do they still feel like students collectively needed addressed. Got back responses on that anonymous survey. Um, I don't know what the school counselor does all day. What does she do? She does nothing except give out rewards or give out awards to students at the ceremonies every month. What does she even do every day? She doesn't do anything. She's always sitting in her room. So that was the feedback I got. I was just like, some people, it was good feedback on some of the issues they were seeing in their classroom, but you had a lot of negative Nancy's in there. And because it was anonymous, they took it as, oh, I'm just going to put whatever and just be nasty. But the interesting thing to me is that I never once had anybody come up to ask like, oh, Jasmine, so what does your day look like? not one teacher came and asked me that. And I would have been like, I know they don't have time to follow me around, but I was once I got that survey, I know I'm at the 30 mark now. Once I got that survey, I literally was thinking in my head, like, maybe I should get like a GoPro, one of the GoPro cameras, just so that people can see, what it entails to be a counselor. Because I could see where a teacher might think all I do is create certificates and pass them out for character traits at the end of every month. That is like 1%, not even 1%, I would say 0.5% of my job. I literally did those certificates within probably 24 hours, and I mean creating a full template certificate to look nice, spelling out 25 names correctly, and signing them and having the principal sign them in 24 hours for a ceremony the next day with their parents. That was 0.5% of the job I had to do. And apparently that's all they were seeing, which I was like, that's kind of a problem because it tells me like you weren't like you were ignoring me in the building. And then B, communication issues. You didn't feel like coming to share with me. And C, that it shows that teachers are in their classrooms like all the time. So like they miss out on a lot that goes on in the school building because they are only in their bubble. So yeah, I really was thinking, I was like, maybe this will be eye-opening for them because they don't see everything. I know we couldn't record like a individual session with the student, but at least they could see the time, how much time we actually get to help people go through crisis situations. um, it was interesting. So I still got some good feedback, and it taught me when I sent out that survey, it taught me too that, oh, everybody's not on your side. Everybody does not want to see you do well. Some people are literally trying to see that you are not doing well. So that was a good lesson. And the first principal, she did give me a heads up on that. So um all right, so I'll stop here for this first session we've been having, counseling session. And I'll follow up with a part two, part three, and so many days, y'all. I've got so many things. So yeah, I'll stop here for this one, but thank you for watching. And now you guys know what my first real big girl job was. Thank you for watching. I'll chat with you later. Bye bye.